That planet is our planet Earth. And this is our story. A real-life drama being played out so covertly that most of us don't even know it's happening. We live oblivious in the midst of the great southern oceans, on an island continent, a land that abounds in nature's gifts. Traders from Far Eastern lands, the Dutch, Portuguese, Spanish and French, visited this land, but none of them saw its potential until an English captain named James Cook sailed into Botany Bay. He took possession of the land under the British Crown and gave it the name of New South Wales. This name, in fact, was adopted for the first colony, which was established on a new landmass named Australia. Other colonies were established in Victoria, South Australia, Queensland, Western Australia and Tasmania, and become self-governing states with their own constitutions and governments, each headed by a governor. It was agreed that the best future of the country lay in federation, and after referendums in each state, the Commonwealth of Australia was established and a new flag was hoisted. The Commonwealth of Australia was established as a constitutional monarchy in the reign of Queen Victoria and her successor, Edward VII, when royal assent was given to the Imperial Act of Parliament that created the Commonwealth of Australia. The Commonwealth of Australia Constitution Act was framed and accepted here, in Australia, before it was presented to the Imperial Parliament for enactment and subsequent royal assent. The importance of retaining this point is that the framers of our Constitution must have known that there would be those who would from time to time seek to compromise the Constitution and its rights, liberties and freedoms. They framed it to maintain the sovereignty of the people over the Parliament and the relationship with the Crown as represented by the Governor-General. They established the judiciary, incorporating a separation of powers to prevent internal predators from destroying the nation. Abraham Lincoln stated this very clearly when he said, "At what point then is the approach of danger to be expected? I answer, if it ever reach us, it must spring up amongst us. It cannot come from abroad. If destruction be our lot, we must ourselves be its author and finisher. As a nation of free men, we must live through all time, or die by suicide." It is therefore so important that we all know our supreme law, the Commonwealth of Australia Constitution Act 1900. It is what created the Commonwealth of Australia in its opening statement, which reads, "Whereas the people of New South Wales, Victoria, South Australia, Queensland and Tasmania, humbly relying on the blessing of Almighty God, have agreed to unite in one indissoluble federal commonwealth under the Crown of the United Kingdom, Great Britain and Ireland, and under the Constitution hereby established." Taking away the superfluous words, this clearly says that it is the people who have agreed to unite in one indissoluble federal commonwealth. Not the states, not the parliaments or governments, but the people. Which clearly tells us that it is the people under this Constitution who are the Commonwealth of Australia. This is not an interpretation taken out of context from our 66-page Constitution. If we look at the annotated version, written by Quick and Garron, consisting of over 1,000 pages of information and interpretations explaining the intent and effect of the mere 66 pages of our Constitution, we find our interpretation fully supported. On page 928 of Quick and Garron, there is a simple diagram showing the hierarchy of power under the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Australia. We, the people, are the Commonwealth, and we, the people, are sovereign. We stand above the Constitution, which is above the federal and state governments. These consist of federal and state parliaments and executives, and we are above them. That includes the federal and state judiciaries. We, the people, are the supreme power in our nation. That is how our nation was defined. The Commonwealth of Australia consists of the people and all our common wealth. This wealth includes the food we produce: wheat, crops, fruit, vines, beef and lamb, with enough production for export, especially our wheat. Our merino sheep started our road to prosperity. With merino wool becoming a world market leader, Australia was tagged as riding on the sheep's back. Then we started to discover the extent of our mineral resources. Coal, iron ore, bauxite, copper, oil and so much more. We made our own steel. We had manufacturing plants and jobs for everyone. We found we had plenty of time to enjoy our sport, and we became good at it. Our land abounds in nature's gifts. With golden soil and wealth for toil, it is young and free. This is the Australia we inherited, and we keep kidding ourselves that this is what we've still got. But it's only an ideal and a dream that we have in our minds. Now I use those words with utmost intent because we are in our dream time. We the people, the Commonwealth, are like a huge grizzly bear, the most powerful entity in the forest. And after a good summer with plenty to eat and full freedom of the forest, we took a nap. One that has lasted almost 40 years. Hence, we should now be known as the Z Society. A society that's fast asleep and even now only showing signs of stirring. Most people want to stay asleep. They just don't want to know about it, no matter what you may want to tell them, because then they don't have to do anything about it. Included in our Commonwealth are essential services and other utilities that gave us protection against the threat of losing services to outside influences or to extortion. Water, power, telecommunications, transport and banking play a vital role in our society. Without them, we are dysfunctional. As we slept, we relied on laws that were put in place to keep them regulated, to keep them out of an inflation spiral, to keep them from getting into the mess they are in now. So what's the situation now? Much of our Commonwealth has been sold. The Commonwealth Bank, in spite of legislation forbidding its privatisation or sale, had legislative changes effected to allow for it to be sold. A banking service for the people is now a private enterprise taking from the people. Telstra was floated. Should have been called Titanic shares because they sank. And in all this, there's something that few of us have noticed. We bought shares in what we already owned. And what's worse, others bought in and now claim a share of what we totally owned. Our water is our existence. It is a matter of national security. Why? Because without water, you die. It doesn't get more vital than that. We must control our water. So when did the people give the government the right to privatise it? Likewise for electricity and telecommunications. What would happen if suddenly the power was turned off and the phones cut? The answer's already been given many times when communities have been struck by a cyclone. They are labelled as disaster areas. Now, in spite of this, we've allowed our essential services to be privatised, giving some corporation the controls so they may switch them off at their discretion. Is this not another national security risk we open ourselves up for? Now, what about the rest of our community needs? Why are they in such a mess? Our healthcare systems are sick. Our border protection is, hang on, what border protection? The education system is producing underachievers, but our utilities are certainly not doing that. Petrol prices are explosive. Water costs are saturated and power bills are shocking. So what are the people that you have put into Parliament to represent you doing about it? Nothing. They don't care because they are the ones doing it to us. They don't care what it will cost us because we are the ones paying the bill. They don't care if they destroy our nation. Otherwise, why would they do it? Well, surely they can be stopped by the courts. Well, no, because they don't care about High Court decisions. Look at the Malaysia solution matter that went into the High Court of Australia. When the High Court decided against the Malaysia solution, Julia Gillard said that they would just pass some new laws and work around it. So why bother having a High Court? The politicians make it into a toothless tiger, nothing to bite them with. All it has is the appearance of authority to frighten the average person. It can't, or is that, won't help us. If you love your country, the time has come for you to act. Otherwise you'll get swallowed up by political dictatorships that have shown you they don't care about you, the people, or your country. They will do as they want. This is your situation right now. This is where we are today. What would you do in this situation? Would you take the suggested advice and just stand there? Or would you do something about what's going to happen to you? Because be assured, it's going to happen, either from one side of the fence or the other. It's not an honour to be the Z Society, because most of the problems have happened on our watch. But it doesn't have to stay that way, because we, the people, have the power. It's time to use it, to do something to fix the problem. We understand that we live in a complex society. Our lives have many aspects and our behaviour has restrictions imposed by rules and regulations which are enshrouded in legislation and the law. We believe that the Constitution, the Governor-General and the Judiciary are there to ensure everything is done according to the law, that the rule of law prevails. But what we have missed during our 40-year nap is that the individuals we were electing to represent us in the Parliament formed political parties and represented themselves. They enacted legislation and used tactics to impose a barrier, suggesting they were both above the people and above the law. Remember, it was us, the people, who elected these politicians to their seats of power. And it was us who trusted them and were deceived by them when they set to work on their own agenda. Now it is up to us to get rid of them by bringing the parliamentary situation back to the way it was intended when our Commonwealth of Australia was first established, by putting forward candidates who will represent us in each electorate and not some political party, and then to vote our candidates into Parliament. Change can then be effected through reforms that will remove the reforms that were put in place to enslave us. To achieve these things, we must unite a platform on which every candidate represents their electorate and not a political party, where there will be communication with the people, not just to poll their opinion, but to keep them informed and seek their agreement with what has to be done. This is how problems will be addressed, not just get covered over by new, bigger ones. This is where the traitors to our nation will face justice. This is the Commonwealth Alliance. This is where there will be government according to the Constitution, where each electorate is represented in a Parliament of the people, the House of Representatives. This is where there will be government according to the Constitution, where each electorate is represented in a Parliament of the people, the House of Representatives. You may well say, why not just vote for the opposition? A good reason not to do that is that nothing will change. It's the same as voting in countries we scoff at, where people get to vote for Communist Party A or Communist Party B. Only here we have different names for them. The two-party system has put us where we are today. They work in tandem. Whatever one implements, the other finalises. This has been going on since 1975, since Whitlam and Fraser conspired to sell us out. The corruption, the collusion, the common agenda between the ALP and the LNP, or the Liberals, whatever you want to call them, has put us in a right big mess. But don't forget, we've also contributed to that by not taking interest, by not learning about what's happening, by not demanding that the media make such information public. Heed the words of Thomas Jefferson, written in 1796. A nation that expects to be ignorant and yet remains civilized and free expects what never was and never will be. Under the Commonwealth Alliance, the people will have to get involved. They will receive information relating to both sides of an issue being resolved. They will provide feedback. Then they will be polled to see how they want to vote on that issue. Under the Commonwealth Alliance, the people must be informed. The people will be involved in making the important decisions. The will of the electorate will be stated, and the electorate's vote will then be made to Parliament. No more politicians peeing in your pocket with promises they won't keep. No more politicians telling you what's good for you because they think you have no idea about what you need. No more politicians destroying what takes lifetimes to build your country. But we no longer have time to think about it. After being asleep for almost 40 years and letting political treachery get out of hand, will the Z Society, the Bear, wake up and get involved in the Commonwealth Alliance to return democracy to our land? The Commonwealth Alliance has the strength of each and every one of you when you stand with it. Together, we can stamp out the political treachery that plagues our society. When we say no local government, no third tier of taxation, we will mean it and we will enforce it. And those who disregard the will of the people will be brought to task before the law. But this won't happen if you leave it to the person sitting next to you or to your neighbour. It will only happen if you stand with the Commonwealth Alliance. This is the moment. Not tomorrow, not later. Right now. Join and stand with the Commonwealth Alliance to get your country back for your children and your grandchildren.